Hello, and once again, welcome to a Smite guide. This time I'm going to talk about one of the more difficult roles, the jungle. Because there's so much to say about the jungle, I have divided this guide into different parts. In the first part I'm going to explain what the jungle is and what's in it. In the second I'm going to discuss who works in the jungle and why. The third part is going to be about jungle routes and farming. The fourth part is going to be about ganking, and last but not least, invading, getting invaded plus wards. This first video will cover part 1 and 2. So let's start with part number 1. What's in the jungle? The jungle is everywhere on the map except the lanes. But the thing that's important in the jungle are the camps. On your side of the jungle there are 2 back camps, 1 speed camp, 1 damage and 2 mana. In the middle of the map there are 2 mid camps. There's also the Gold Fury and the Fire Giant. These camps are gonna be your main source of income. The back camp's speed, damage and mana buffs are all made up of 2 small creeps and 1 big. The big one is worth more than 2 small ones combined, and is the one carrying the buff. The mid camps are 2 big ones instead, making them more valuable than the others. All the buff camps have a respawn timer of 4 minutes, the mid camps 3 minutes, and the back camps 100 seconds. For the sake of this guide, I have divided the jungle into 3 sections. Your section, the middle section, and the enemy section. Every time you kill a camp in your own section, I'm gonna call it farming. Going for the Gold Fury, Fire Giant or mid camps is called contesting, and going into the enemy jungle is called invading. So who works in the jungle? There are a lot of different gods that works in the jungle. When you are new to the jungle, the 2 things you want most out of your god is effective farming and high gank potential. The reason for this is that you want to keep your farm up without spending too much time farming. And also, every time you gank, it's time spent not farming, but it might be worth it if you get a kill or force the enemy to back, giving your teammate the upper hand in the lane. The most common class in the jungle are the assassins, but other classes works as well. Some non-assassin junglers are Freya, Ymir and Osiris. I often get the question what you should buy as a jungler, and it depends a lot on the god you are playing. To make it as easy as possible for new players, I have divided all the physical junglers into 3 different categories, which I am going to be giving item guides and building tips on. I'm going to call the first category backline bruisers. I'm going to call the second one in-handers and the third one bursters. Keep in mind that these names are created by me for the purpose of teaching new players about the jungle. People who have not seen this video might not know what you mean if you start talking about backline bruisers or bursters. The first category, the bruisers, are usually the gods who have a decent amount of crowd control in their kit and might take some time putting out their damage. The strength of this type is that you can lock down enemies, securing damage for you and your teammate while doing a lot of damage yourself. The reason they are called backline bruisers is because in teamfights they can dive into the enemy backline and shut down and kill all the enemy damage dealers. Their main source of damage are usually the abilities. 2 of the most common backline bruisers are Thor and WHATS. Because of this playstyle, they are usually built with a lot of defense and penetration compared to the other junglers. Start the game out with Bombus Mask. You're gonna need the mana regens because you need your abilities to clear the camps fast. Also get Hog 2 to help you clear camps at low level. You can also get Hog 1 and Shoes tier 1 if you feel like you need the movement speed. Use the rest of your 100 starting gold to buy either potions or wards. When you're playing this type, always get Warrior's Tabi as your first item. This is because you need the penetration and the movement speed to get around the jungle faster. After that, get the Jotun's Wrath. This is because of the penetration and the cooldown that it gives you. 25% cooldown means 25% more ultimates. As your third item, I recommend getting a defensive item. If you are far ahead, you can either get more penetration or a damage item, but usually when you're even or behind, it's a lot better to get defensive. The 3 I recommend are Hide of the Urchin, Magi's Blessing and Shifter Shield. Get the Hide of the Urchin if you feel like you're getting killed too easily. Get the Magi's Blessing if you feel like you're getting crowd control too much. Or get the Shifter Shield to get a nice mix between high defense and high damage. The rest of the build depends a lot on the god and the situation, but generally you want a Titan's Bane and 1 more defensive item. Then as your last item, you can get a situational item. For example, this could be Deathbringer for WHATS because his passive gives him crit chance, or a Hydra's Lament for Thor because it gives him extra damage right before he dumps all his abilities, or the Chin Size for Chalk. It could also be a defensive item if your team is lacking a front line. The second category are the in-handers. This type gets their damage from their basic attacks. The strength of this type is that there is a consistent damage output with high burst potential. In team fights, basicers want to pick their moment to get in, stick to a target and kill it before it gets its damage out. Positioning is very important. Typical in-handers are Mercury, Bakasura and Kali. Builds for these gods are usually focused on attack speed and crits or queen size. Start the same way you did with the Bruisers, with Bombus Mask, Hog 2 and Potions, or Hog 1 and choose tier 1. There are a little more variation in the in-hander builds than in the Bruisers, but I've tried to make it as simple as possible. The two different ways you can get high damage are queen size or crits. If you're going for the size, the two things you want out of your other items are attack speed and penetration. If you're going for crits, you need a Deathbringer and Rage. From the other items you want power and penetration. Because both the items you get and the order you get them in are situational, I'm not going to be able to talk that much about the builds, but here are 3 suggested ones. I also want to take a minute to explain the situational items. The first one is the Witchblade. This one gives you movement speed, attack speed and physical protection, while also reducing enemy attack speed and physical power. This item is really good if you are up against an enemy in-hander. The second one is Fatalis. Fatalis allows you to keep up with your opponent as they are running away, and is really good for gods who doesn't have a gap closer. The third one is Jotun's Wrath. This is not a common item for in-handers, but a lot of people pick it up on Mercury just to help him farm more efficiently and let him ult a lot more. The third category are the Bursters. These are a bit similar to the backline Bruisers, but have some differences that drastically changes the way they are played. These cards have a kit built around being able to kill an enemy fast by yourself. They do not have the same amount of crowd control as the Bruisers, nor do they have the survivability of one. 2 typical Bursters are Loki and Thanatos. They work in the same way. Go in, dump all you got, get a kill and leave. However, there is a huge difference between these 2 gods. The difference is that Thanatos shines early game. He has an amazingly strong early game, but it becomes worse the later the game goes. Loki on the other hand gets better and better the longer the game goes, and really shines late game. I have made 2 suggested builds here that really capitalizes on the god's strength. For instance, Thanatos doesn't need Bombus Mask because of his passive. Instead he can get Death's Toll to get a stronger early game. After that you want to max your CDR, because Thanatos gets his main damage from his 1. You're gonna notice you lose power about where you get your 4th item. The suggested build for Loki here is capitalizing his late game, getting as much burst as possible. The last item on Loki, the Magi's Blessing, is only situational, but usually late game when they're team fights, Loki gets crowd control a lot, and Magi's Blessing really helps. That concludes part 1 of my jungle guide. We went over what's in the jungle, who works in it, and what to build on different styles of gods. In the next part I'm going to talk about farming, jungle routes, ganking, invading and warding. Also, I want to know, what do you think is the most difficult thing about the jungle? Let me know in the comments and I'll try to help you in part 2. Be sure to subscribe if you want to get the next part as soon as it gets out. If you found this video helpful, please share it with others who might need it. I have also made guides for solo and the mid lane, so if you feel like you just can't get enough of my half-bad English, head over to my channel and let me teach you about the wonders of mid and solo. Thank you for watching and have a beautiful day.